You're watching Nightline with me, Sabrina Zainal. News making the headlines. Government sets 100 kilograms limit per person on local rice purchase. And Bank Negara maintains OPR at 3%. Good morning. We begin with this story. ASEAN leaders have strongly condemned the continued escalation of violence, which has caused prolonged suffering for the people of Myanmar, humanitarian crisis, the destruction of houses and public facilities, as well as adverse impacts on regional stability, particularly along the border region. In a chairman's statement released on Thursday, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim and ASEAN leaders reiterated their position that the 5-point consensus, 5PC, remains as ASEAN's main reference to address Myanmar's political crisis.
Setakat ini konsensus 5 perkara itu nampak dipersetujui dan tidak dirasakan perlu untuk dikaji semula. Walaupun kita tak menafikan hak atau keperluan mana-mana inisiatif yang lain untuk berhubung dengan pihak Myanmar dengan syarat tidak mengenepikan 5-point consensus.
They are also gravely concerned by the lack of substantial progress on its implementation by the authority in Myanmar, despite their commitment to the 5PC in April 2021. On Palestine, Anwar and ASEAN leaders expressed concern over the developments in the Middle East region and reiterated the need for a comprehensive, just and sustainable solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict in order to achieve peace and stability in the Middle East region. Leaders also urged both sides to actively take positive steps to allow for negotiations to gain traction and work together towards the resumption of negotiations to achieve an enduring peace. Meanwhile, Anwar has also discussed Palestine and Myanmar issues as well as ASEAN United Nations cooperation during his bilateral meeting with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres on the sidelines of the summit. The Prime Minister reiterated Malaysia's commitment to work closely with the UN and ASEAN, particularly on efforts to find a peaceful political situation for Myanmar. The government is restricting the sale of local white rice to 100 kilograms per customer with immediate effect. Agriculture and Food Security Ministry's Director General, Padi and Rice Regulatory Division, Dato' Azman Mahmud, in announcing the matter, said some traders were found to be buying up to 700 kilograms of local white rice.
Cuma ada kekurangan beras putih. Kita dapati ada peniaga-peniaga yang membeli beras putih dalam satu masa dalam 500 hingga 700. Sebab tu kita buat sekatan pada hari ini, bermula pada hari ini 10 beg saja mengikut peraturan 1B. Setiap orang hanya boleh membeli 10 kampit beg 10 kilo ataupun 100 kilo.
Azman said the purchase limit will be imposed until the supply of local white rice normalizes. He said the government has sufficient stocks to last 6 months. He also denied claims that local players are changing the label of rice packages following the increase in the price of imported white rice, saying his team has not received any formal complaints from the public regarding the matter. Bank Negara Malaysia has decided to maintain the overnight policy rate OPR at 3% following its 2-day Monetary Policy Committee MPC meeting that ended on Thursday. The central bank in a statement said at the current OPR level, the monetary policy stance remains supportive of the economy and is consistent with the current assessment of inflation and growth prospects. It added the MPC will ensure that the policy stance remains conducive in order to have sustainable economic growth amid price stability. In the second quarter, it said the growth of the Malaysian economy was affected by slower external demand and a decline in commodity production. However, moving forward, growth is expected to continue, driven by resilient domestic expenditure. Continued employment and wage growth, particularly in the domestic-oriented sectors, has remained supportive of household spending. The 6th and final MPC meeting for the year is scheduled to take place in November. The OPR is an important part of Malaysia's monetary policy as it can impact a wide range of important financial measures, and the move to keep the rate unchanged met market expectations. How significant is the decision, and what does it mean for the economy? FMT's Natasha Bust speaks to economists to find out.
Keeping the status quo is not always a bad thing. In fact, in the case of the country's overnight policy rate, or OPR, it could help spur economic growth. On Thursday, Bank Negara Malaysia maintained the OPR at 3%, a decision economist Afzal Nizam Rashid said was the right move.
So I think what has been announced is very much within what has been anticipated by most economists, including us. I think the main reason, obviously, the global economy seems to be quite uncertain, especially in China.
The Bank Muamalat Malaysia chief economist said maintaining the OPR will protect the economy from global headwinds.
I think it's only right that Bank Negara would need to be on alert on the possible incoming slowdown from abroad, and given that Malaysia is very much an open economy in respect to the trade and also investments.
It will also boost domestic demand, he said.
At a time when we know domestic demand will be the key driver for economic growth, keeping the OPR steady is in the best interest for the country to stimulate the investment and also consumptions, which are the main pillars for domestic demand.
Bank Negara Monetary Policy Committee, or MPC, said the OPR was maintained at its present level to support the economy. Over 1 year since May 2022, the OPR increased steadily, going from 1.75% to 3%. The last increase 4 months ago brought the OPR to its pre-pandemic level of 3%. Economist Jeffrey Williams of the Malaysia University of Science and Technology also lauded the decision to maintain the OPR.
The MPC decision is exactly as we expected and is the right decision. So inflation is falling, but growth is supported by domestic demand against difficult international headwinds. So keeping rates on hold eases any pressures on domestic conditions and protects against international conditions.
Williams predicts that the OPR will be maintained at 3% until the end of the year.
Even though oil prices have risen, that will not affect inflation immediately, and the weaker exchange rate is not affected much by interest rates. So these factors are not high priorities.
Natasha Bust, FMT for Nightline.
Datuk Sri Bung Mukhtar Radin and his wife, Datuk Sri Zizi Izzat Abdul Samad, have been freed from all corruption charges involving 2.8 million ringgit. Kuala Lumpur High Court Judge Datuk Azhar Abdul Hamid acquitted and discharged the couple from the case on Thursday. The court made the decision after ruling that the Sessions Court erred in ordering Bung Mukhtar and Zizi Izzat to enter their defense on September 2nd last year. Azhar said that after examining the records, this court finds that there was no evidence that P24 and P25, prosecution witnesses Madi Abdul Hamid and Nurhaili Mukhtar, had given money to Bung through his wife Zizi. On May 3, 2019, Bung Mukhtar was charged with 2 charges of accepting bribes of 2.2 million ringgit and 262,500 ringgit as an inducement to obtain Felcra approval to invest 150 million ringgit in public mutual unit trusts. He is alleged to have accepted the bribes from Public Mutual Berhad's investment agent, Madi Abdul Hamid, through Zizi Izzat at Public Bank's Taman Melawati branch in Kuala Lumpur between 12:30 p.m. and 5 p.m. on June 12, 2015. Bung Mukhtar was also charged with receiving 337,500 ringgit in cash from Unit Amanah consultant Nurhaili Ahmad Mukhtar under the name of Zizi Izzat for the same reason and place on June 19, 2015. Zizi Izzat, meanwhile, faced 3 charges of abetting her husband over the matter at the same place, date and time. In the meantime, police have completed the investigation papers involving politicians accused of playing up race, religion and royalty, or 3R issues. According to Inspector General of Police Tan Sri Razaruddin Hussein, the papers involving past President Tan Sri Abdul Hadi Awang and former Prime Minister Tun Dr. Mahathir Mohamad have been referred to the Attorney General's Chambers, AGC.
Siasatan ke atas siasatan pada Statut M telah pun kita edarkan ke Jabatan Peguam Negara pada 5 hari bulan 2 hari lepas. Manakala siasatan ke atas Tan Sri Abdul Hadi kita edarkan pada hari ini pagi tadi.
Prior to this, Bukit Aman Criminal Investigation Department Director Muhammad Shuhaili Muhammad Zain said that investigations had begun on Hadi under Section 4(1) of the Sedition Act and Section 244 of the Malaysian Communications and Multimedia Act. It was over Abdul Hadi's statement in his ceramah at the PAS Party headquarters in Bakri Muar last month, where he was alleged to have questioned the power of the Pardons Board. The investigation on Dr. Mahathir, in the meantime, is in connection with allegedly insulting the royal institution. In another development, Razaruddin confirmed that the police will call up Perikatan Nasional Chairman Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin next Tuesday to record his statement regarding the political fatwa issued by him.
This week on Money Matters, smear campaigns against palm oil, how to put a stop to it once and for all, expectation of a rise in crude palm oil production by year-end, and addressing labour shortage in the palm oil sector. Join us with Malaysian Palm Oil Council Chairman Datuk Carl Back-Nielsen this Saturday at 5 p.m. on TV3 and live HD stream on Tonton.
In a recent operation called Op Pharma in Air Keroh, Malacca on Wednesday, the State Health Department seized 642 health products containing unregistered anabolic steroids worth 8.3 million ringgit. The raid targeted 7 storage premises and lasted for 8 hours, resulting in the detention of 2 individuals, one of whom was a foreigner. State Health Director Dr. Rusdi Abdul Rahman said that during the operation, 5 digital devices believed to be used for online sales of these products were also confiscated. He added that his department had been monitoring and conducting surveillance on these activities for the past 2 years. Initial investigations revealed that the products were imported from overseas through online channels and stored in the premises before being sold to customers. The case falls under the Control of Drugs and Cosmetics Regulations, which carries fines of up to 25,000 ringgit, a 3-year jail term, or both for first-time offenders. In Pahang, a former district police chief pleaded not guilty to 46 counts of bribery amounting to 70,600 ringgit between 2019 and this year at the Kuantan Sessions Court on Thursday. 53-year-old Muhammad Azhar Muhammad Yusuf claimed trial after the charges were read out to him before Judge Dato' Ahmad Zamzani Muhammad Zain. According to the charges, the accused was alleged to have received valuable items, namely cash ranging between 100 ringgit and 5,600 ringgit from several individuals and companies to shield them from legal action between March 2019 till January this year. He was charged under the Penal Code and, if found guilty, he could be imprisoned for up to 2 years or fined or both. Additionally, he faces 46 alternative charges under the MACC Act, carrying a maximum 20-year jail term and a substantial fine upon conviction. The judge set bail at 25,000 ringgit with 1 surety and imposed conditions, including reporting to the Pahang MACC office, surrendering his international passport to the court, and not interfering with prosecution witnesses. The case is scheduled for mention on November 15th. Rishi Sunak faces new vote as lawmaker resigns. This and more from the Foreign Front after this breather. With the foreign front, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak faces another difficult vote to fill a vacant seat in Parliament after a lawmaker who was given an 8-week suspension for groping two men at a London club last year announced that he plans to resign. Now, Chris Pincher, who now sits as an independent on Thursday, announced he would leave the House of Commons more than a year after he was suspended from the ruling Conservative Party by then Prime Minister Boris Johnson last year. Pincher had argued that his suspension was disproportionate, but he lost that appeal on Monday and faced removal by his constituents due to the length of the suspension. The timing of the resignation could mean that the vote to replace him is held on the same day as a by-election to replace former Culture Minister and Sunak critic Nadine Dorries, which will take place on October 19th. The votes could intensify pressure on Sunak, whose Conservative Party lost 2 out of 3 parliamentary seats contested in July and who is struggling to re-energize his premiership ahead of a national election expected last year. The Jakarta-Bandung High-Speed Railway, HSR, a collaborative project between China and Indonesia, was put into operation on Thursday, reducing travel time between the two cities from 3.5 hours to just 40 minutes. The Jakarta-Bandung HSR is the first high-speed railway line in Indonesia and Southeast Asia, connecting Indonesia's most densely populated areas and effectively alleviating commuting traffic pressure between the two cities. The landmark project under the China Proposed Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, is undergoing intensive joint commissioning and testing, paving the way for commercial operations, which is scheduled to begin next month. Chinese ambassador to Indonesia, Lu Kang, in the meantime, said he believed that the HSR will bring tangible benefits to Indonesia, while expecting the project to become a new growth point and create a high-speed railway economic corridor. The G20 grouping of nations on Thursday has agreed to grant permanent membership to the African Union. According to reports, the move would give the African Union a continental body of 55 member states, the same status as the EU, up from its current designation of invited international organization. In an article on Thursday, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi said that its presidency of the summit has not only seen the largest ever participation from African countries, but has also pushed for the inclusion of the African Union as a permanent member of the G20. Previously, Modi wrote to the leaders of the G20 nations in June, proposing the AU be given full permanent membership of the bloc at the upcoming summit in the Indian capital. It is believed that the G20 leaders are expected to announce the decision during the summit. Two national mixed doubles pairs crew. Badminton, the 2023 China Open. Two national mixed doubles pairs, Chen Tangji To Yi-wei and Tan Kian Meng Lai Pei-jing, brought cheers to the Malaysian badminton camp as they continued their fine run to sail into the last 8. Tangji Yi-wei survived a rubber set thriller to stun 6th seeds from South Korea, Kim Won-ho, Jung Na-eun, 21-15, 15-21, 21-18. With their win, the unseeded duo will take on Yi Hong-wei, Lee Chia-sin in the next round for a ticket to the semi-finals. Meanwhile, Kian Meng Pei-jing came out on top, 18-21, 21-19, 21-12 against former All-England champions Pravin Jordan Melati Deva Oktavianti of Indonesia. The duo will face Thailand's 4th seed, Dechapol Pawara Nukro Sapsiri Theratanachai in the next round. This victory was particularly significant for Kian Meng Pei-jing, marking the first time they have reached the quarterfinals in a tournament this year. Turning to tennis now, the 2023 U.S. Open. World number 1 Carlos Alcaraz finished off a drained Alexander Zverev to move into the semi-finals. The Spaniard pushed aside Zverev 6-3, 6-2, 6-4 and moved a step closer to becoming the first man to win consecutive titles at Flushing Meadows since Roger Federer collected 5 in a row from 2004 to 2008. With the win, 20-year-old Alcaraz will face 2021 U.S. Open champion Daniil Medvedev in the semi-finals. Earlier, 3rd seed Medvedev beat fellow Russian Andrei Rublev in straight sets to reach the semi-finals for the 4th time. The 2021 champion trailed by a break in all 3 sets, but fought back each time to win 6-4, 6-3, 6-4 against Rublev after 2 hours and 48 minutes on court. We're going for a short break. When we return, Malaysia marks 50th anniversary of pediatric surgery. Stay tuned. Thanks for staying with us. Now up next, a story of one chef's resilience in a time of hardship. Sureshwaran Raju was working his dream job at a restaurant when a road accident robbed him of his left forearm. But 6 years later, he's back cooking. FMT has the story.
When tragedy strikes, some get lost in the aftermath, while others, like 30-year-old Sureshwaran Raju, rise above it. 6 years ago, while riding home from work on his motorcycle, Sureshwaran was involved in a road accident that led to the loss of his left forearm. A culinary school graduate, he was working as a chef in a restaurant at the time. But the accident in 2017 derailed his career, and to make matters worse, he lost the use of his dominant side as he was left-handed.
ரொம்ப கஷ்டமா இருந்தது. ஏன்னா நம்ம சின்ன வயசுலேருந்தே லெஃப்ட் ஹேண்டர்லேயே எல்லா வேலையும் செஞ்சு பழகி, ஸோ திடீர்னு அந்த மாதிரி ஆக்சிடெண்ட்டில் கை இதானோடனே ஒரு 3 இயர்ஸ் நான் வந்து ஸ்ட்ரகிள் பண்ணேன். அதுக்கப்புறம் நிறைய இடத்துல ட்ரை பண்ணி வேலை கிடைக்கல. ஸோ நம்மளே சொந்தமாக ஆரம்பிச்சிடலாம் அப்படின்ட்டு தான் இந்த ஸ்டால் எடுத்தது நம்ம.
It took him 5 years to learn how to fully utilize his right hand. But today, Sureshwaran is back at the stove. Thanks to the support of his family, the business is going well, rekindling his childhood dream of becoming a chef. Coming from humble beginnings himself, with his father being a retired gardener, Sureshwaran isn't seeking big profits. He's fully aware that many of his customers are from the B40 community.
வெஸ்டர்ன் ஃபுட்டுன்றது வந்து அதோட ப்ரைஸ் கொஞ்சம் அதிகமாக இருக்கும். நம்ம எங்கே போனாலுமே அதோட ப்ரைஸ் கொஞ்சம் ஹெவியாக தான் இருக்கும். ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி ரோட் சைடில் வந்தால் நம்மளோட நடுத்தர மக்களோட வந்து அதை ட்ரை பண்ணி பார்க்கலாம் வந்து. அதனால தான் அதனால தான் நம்ம வந்து எதுவுமே விலை கூட இல்லாமல் இந்த இடத்துக்கு என்ன தேவையோ அந்த ஒரு ப்ரைஸ் வச்சு நம்ம விற்கிறோம். அந்த ஒரு ஐடியாவில் வந்தது தான் இது.
Although today Sureshwaran can stand on his own feet, he admits that it wasn't an easy journey.
ஸோ ஆரம்பிக்கிறப்ப நம்ம ஸ்லோவாக இருந்துச்சு. அதுக்கப்புறம் கஸ்டமர் வர வர நம்மளோட ரெஸ்பான்ஸும் கொஞ்சம் நல்லா இருக்குது கஸ்டமர்.
Despite having only one arm, this young man cooks every item on the menu, from the sauces and soups to the grilled chicken chop and lamb, entirely from scratch. With his culinary skill and resilient nature, Sureshwaran continues to build a loyal customer base, setting an example of making the most out of life even when it seemed all was lost. Divya Raghu, FMT Lifestyle for Nightline.
And before signing off, here's something to celebrate 50 amazing years of world-class pediatric surgery in Malaysia. But it wasn't always the case. FMT caught up with former pediatric surgeon Dr. Mahmud Muhammad Noor for the story.
Hospitals can be a scary place for children, especially those undergoing surgical procedures. But did you know that surgery for the young was not always available in Malaysia? Pediatric surgery, a niche subspecialty that involves operating on infants, children and teenagers, was non-existent in Malaya at the time of independence or even the formation of Malaysia in 1963. Children and adults used to be treated in the same wards and with the same medical equipment that weren't specifically designed for smaller bodies. So, how did pediatric surgery in Malaysia come to be? With this year marking the 50th anniversary of pediatric surgery in the country, University Science Islam Malaysia Emeritus Professor of Surgery Dr. Mahmud Muhammad Noor traces its history back to the early 1970s.
There is a need, to have children being taken care of by people who are trained to handle children. So, a surgeon, for example, will handle, from the newborn to pediatric and geriatric. It's because of numbers, all right. We didn't have enough people, trained people, so the need was not there.
It would take many years before it was understood and accepted that children have needs that vary from adults, and that young patients would recover more quickly when treated by doctors who are trained to care for them.
Children require instruments which a similar instrument but smaller in size. We were catering for adults basically, all right? So when I started operating, I don't have the fine scissors, the fine forceps, okay? The facilities itself were not tailored towards the needs of children, all right?
By the 1980s, the need for specialized pediatric surgery became clear, especially as doctors increasingly gained access to new technologies. And this was further cemented in 1988, when conjoined twins were successfully separated by a team of surgeons led by Mahmud himself. The growing specialty now sees 84 surgeons actively practicing in Malaysia as of this year, with the priority shifting from ensuring the mere survival of patients to treating them with minimally invasive surgical intervention. With pediatric surgery in Malaysia celebrating its golden jubilee this year, Mahmud strongly advocates for the establishment of regional children's hospitals across the country, so that all children can benefit from the work of these good doctors. Adrian Chandran, FMT Lifestyle for Nightline.
As we wrap up Nightline this time around, let's take a look at the Frieza Art Fair, which returned to South Korea for a second year on Wednesday, with dealers hoping the event will boost the burgeoning local art market after economic woes triggered a slump in sales this year. With that, I'm Sabrina Zainal. Thank you for watching and stay safe.